next panel, if you want to make your way to the front. We're going to be talking about the importance of sponsorships and the focus on the importance of sponsorship and the impact that it has on the industry and women and minorities going forward. So I will let Audrey take it away as soon as she gets up here.
Thank you so much. So hard to go behind security and data, right? I mean, we all deal with, and I've known Rustin for years. He's a dynamic speaker and very successful business person. So, well, thank you for having us today. I'm so excited. But before we get started, and this is a topic that we are all passionate about, but I'd like to thank MPC for having us, for also partnering with WNET. And I want to thank them personally because I haven't been to this show in many years, and I'm so impressed to see so many people. And welcome back after the pandemic, right? So, amen. I felt like I was in church there for a minute. But I'm Audrey Blackman. I'm the general manager of partnerships at BHG Financial, and I've been in the industry, for those of you that don't know me, for over 30 years. I have worked at companies and led initiatives at First Data, Vantiv, WorldPay, Blackhawk, and in between I've worked with startups in helping them bring their product to market. And I'm very excited to be here today and to talk about, like I said, this topic because it's near and dear to my heart. I've been sponsored throughout my career, and I've been fortunate enough to have sponsors that were very senior and working for me and advocating for me in the background, unbeknownst to me at the time. So my career definitely has been impacted by sponsorships. So I am happy to be talking about this topic. I'm also happy to be joined by two phenomenal women that I have the pleasure of working with at WNET on a regular basis and leading 5,000 women in this industry. So joining me today, I have Polly.
Hi.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, Polly Van Duzer. I have been in payments for 14 years. I am probably unique here. I'm probably one of the only HR panelists, and so I am really thrilled to be here. I have been in talent acquisition, leading internal talent acquisition organizations for the last 14 years. I was with WorldPay, Heartland, and Bank of America Merchant Services, and now I'm with an organization, One Inc. We are an inbound, outbound organization that focuses on the insurance space, so we do inbound, outbound payments. We're rapidly growing, we're hiring, and
HR.
always have the HR hat on. And so, yeah, it's amazing to be here. I am on the executive board of WNET. It has been a game changer for my career in meeting people like Gail and Audrey and being able to work with them. And so this year I am treasurer, and I will be vice president next year and president, and it'll be great to be leading such a great organization, as Audrey was saying, of 5,000 women and growing.
Okay.
Gail.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Gail Burgos. I have been in the payment industry for over 25 years. I work for a company now called Global Payments, but it was TSYS when I started 25 years ago. I recently retired from there and actually went on into First Century, a little small company that needed their diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy forth. But before I left Global Payments, I was their senior diversity officer. You're going to hear about, as we talk about, the importance of sponsorship and how that had an impact on my career. Without that sponsorship, I would not be where I am today. And so I did transition over and I started my own company, Burgos Consulting Group, where I am the CEO and founder, and I have clients who need assistance with their DEI strategies, their unconscious bias to conscious inclusion training and workshops, because everyone has gone through the unconscious bias training, but it's what do you do after? And so that is where my sweet spot lies. And of course, I am a board of director member with WNET, which is near and dear to my heart as well. And I get to work along with these amazing ladies here in supporting women all over the United States in the payment industry. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So looking around the room, I see very seasoned senior folks. Most of us are in, the middle or the end of our career. I apologize if there's any young folks in the audience, but there, as being a sponsor, I've been a sponsor many times throughout my career, sometimes intentional, sometimes unintentional. But I can remember early in my career when I was I was a receptionist, hired to be a receptionist for this business equipment company. And unbeknownst to me, 2 months into that job, I was tapped on the shoulder to move up to the senior office. And I was going to be back then I think we were called secretaries. I was going to be the secretary to the VP of sales of this large organization. Well, come to find out, the current assistant was watching me, and she actually went to her boss and said, "We need to promote this young lady. She has some skill sets that I think can help us out." So early in my career, I was promoted 4 times within that organization in 3 years. And it was never once did anyone come to me and ask me what I wanted to do, but it was through sponsorship. And it was great for my career. I learned a lot in that position and was always grateful for that first tap on the shoulder. So there is a difference. I think what we want to talk about today, there's a big difference between sponsorship and mentorship. I think all of us, when we think about sponsorship, we think about mentorship. And sponsorship is when a senior level person advocates for you on your behalf as a junior worker. It's real important for us as senior folks to always be looking around us and looking for a replacement. I always tell my staff, I'm always looking to replace myself, because then I can grow and then I can get to the next level as well. But also, there's so much joy, especially this time in my career, watching someone else and being a part of changing their life, right? You do the work, someone will sponsor you. That's my thought. So what we're going to talk about today is true sponsorship. So ladies, how has sponsorship impacted your career? Polly?
Yes, hi. Well, that was a great story, Audrey.
Oh, thank you. It's true.
I know if you are here saying, I want to get sponsored, or you are a senior leader and you say, how can I sponsor? That's what we're here to hopefully you take some great takeaways. I'm going to tell an early career story, 2 things that really elevated my career, and one was very early. So you don't go to college and say, oh, I'm going to be a recruiter, right? And so I went to Anderson Consulting right out of school. I was in a group called Engagement Management Services. That was a liaison between the very large engagements and HR. And I was there for a couple of years, and there was a new group that was forming called Business Practices Executive Recruiting. And I had gotten to know one of the leaders in the office, Tom Darrow. If anybody's in HR, you might know Tom in Atlanta. But he went to my leader and said, I see real potential in Polly, and I want her in my new organization. Now, I will tell you, I knew nothing about recruiting. I knew you did a resume and you applied for a role and you were interviewed, but beyond that I knew nothing about recruiting. Tom really took a interest in me. Not only did he bring me into the organization, he put me under a great executive recruiter that worked with me every single day. Tom introduced me to leaders, he put me in meetings, he gave me opportunities that I never would have gotten. So that's the first thing that really set my career on a great trajectory. trajectory. The second thing is, so I was at Anderson almost 5 years. And I went to Bell South in a staffing manager role. That was an individual contributor role, although it's a staffing manager. But after a couple of years, I was promoted into a role where I worked in the business, running HR programs. That was a great opportunity. Well, let's see, I guess it was a couple of years into that role, the director that was now a VP went to my leaders in the DCSC that I was at Bell South and said, we want Polly back in our organization. Now, these meetings happened, I had no idea. I had never been a people leader. We all know, anyone that's a people leader, you know that that's one of the most difficult steps to get to in an organization is your first leadership opportunity, people leader opportunity. And so that was the thing that really elevated my career. So Kevin brought me back into the recruiting, what's called staffing, the staffing organization. And I still remember to this day, and sponsorship's about, amplifying others, right? And I still remember to this day how he would talk about me to the new team that I was joining to lead, the other leaders in the group, the clients that were going to be my clients and my team's clients. It really, seeing me as a leader when I didn't see myself as a leader. And so he gave me assignments that I never thought I could do, but it really helped to elevate my career. I've been in talent acquisition management ever since, and so those are the two things I think early career, but really set me on a great path, which has been a great career in recruiting.
Awesome.
Excellent. Okay, thank you for sharing that. It's an excellent story. Gail, as a woman of color, how has sponsorship impacted you?
Thank you. Great question. So many of you, for your organizations, I'm sure, have DEI strategies and to increase representation, particularly women of color or people of color, and then, of course, your gender. That's typically what organizations, when they start off with their diversity strategies, are targeted on, that representation. And I can honestly say, working for a company that had less than 20% of people of color in their leadership, and that being a strategic plan or a focus, was very important. And the difference that it made in my career, it was that sponsorship. And I was very fortunate about 15 years ago where the CIO came to the company and she was looking for a chief of staff. Now, the organization had never had a chief of staff role. But my group exec put my name in the hat, tapped me on the shoulder and said, you should consider that. And I said, I'm looking for more of a senior role in your organization. I'm not wanting to go over here. He said, but just give it a shot, give it a try. And when I did sit down, and long story short, sit down and talk with her, she was more interested not in my career path because I had a stellar career path. I was a high potential individual that had been a rock star. But she described me, or he described me, as the pearl in the oyster. I was, because of my color maybe, because I was a woman, however it was, but I worked really hard, and that was part of my performance record. But he recommended me for the chief of staff, and her pouring into me when I did take that role on, it was not just the mentorship, ladies and gentlemen, it was she sat me down every week and taught me how to manage a multi-million-dollar budget. Now, financial awareness and how to manage a large portfolio and a P&L was something that really, quite honestly, a lot of women and minorities were lacking in our organization. So that financial awareness elevation was very important for me. She exposed me, as Polly has said, and advocated for me in the C-suite. And I didn't know she was doing this behind closed doors. And so when her peer, the CHRO of the organization, said, we are very serious now about starting a diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy, she put my name in the hat. Unbeknownst to me, I didn't know she did that, but she said, I need for you to go talk to him. And so I did, and I was again tapped on the shoulder for that role. And it was a huge responsibility because now I was leading an entire organization of 14,000 people and being responsible for their brand new D&I strategy. And so without that sponsorship and that exposure and putting me out in front of the organization, I would not be the person I am today. So it's very important. There is a difference between mentorship and sponsorship.
Absolutely. So in 2021, 47.8 million people left the workforce. 60% of these quit, citing no opportunity for advancement as the reason for leaving. Wasn't the pandemic. So to the panel, how do you get a sponsor? I mean, this is the important thing. Like, we've told our stories. We were unaware of the sponsorship that was happening behind us. But there's something there that I think that we can share with the group. How do you find or get a sponsor? And let's start with Gail.
Okay. Well, I love our diverse perspective, so I will share. In my thought around gaining a sponsor, the sponsor has to be intentional and willing to pour into that person. And so, yes, I had the track record of being a high potential, high performing, but they saw something, my senior leadership saw something in me, and they were very intentional about handpicking and selecting. I do agree with you, Audrey, that you are to work hard, but the organization and the senior leaders have to be very strategic about giving opportunity to the people of color and to the women and those who are in marginalized groups, and being selective about that. And then the sponsoree or the sponsor has to be willing to pour their experience and their knowledge and really take that person up under their wing and provide them with the tools and the knowledge that they're lacking, so that they are confident when they do elevate into those roles.
Great answer. So what I'm hearing is, as a sponsor, and a lot of us are at that age in our career where we should be looking and being intentional about our role as a sponsor. So Polly, from, again, the same question.
Yeah, so first of all, you will never get sponsored if you don't have a strong reputation in the organization, right? And so your brand and your reputation will precede you. Someone has to stand up and say, I am willing to vouch for this person because I see the value that they bring to the next level. And so that is first and foremost. I think that, how we can maybe have better insight into how we are viewed in the organization is ask some trusted colleagues of yours, or maybe your boss, what do people say about me when I'm not in the room? Mm-hmm. And I think that this will, that might be part of a performance review or just a one-on-one that you have, or maybe you came out of a meeting and there was, feedback afterwards. Ask that question and see what type of response that you get. If you, the other thing I would say is never too early or too late to look for a sponsor. One way that you can, and maybe you're saying like, well, who can be a sponsor? It could be someone, it certainly could be your boss, but it's going to be a senior level person, as Audrey said, but it could be a key stakeholder, someone that you work with. It could be another executive in the organization, but get to know people in your organization. Take assignments, take on additional responsibility, because without that, you're likely not going to be, noticed in the organization, and that's really what it's going to take.
I'm going to throw one out there, but have either one of you ever been asked to be a sponsor?
I haven't been asked to be a sponsor, but I have just naturally sponsored more junior people in my career. And I look for, I think that that's something that leaders should do. You have to be looking for people in the organization who you can help rise up in the organization. I think that it is a responsibility that leaders have that they should take on.
Yes. I have not been asked, but I have sponsored several. To help them in their career path, going from individual contributor to leadership.
Great feeling, isn't it?
It is.
Especially when they succeed.
That's right.
So I know we're running out of time, but I just have one more question. what are one or two takeaways that you would like to share on how to become a sponsor, obtain sponsorship, which is still a follow-up to the last question.
You want to start, Polly?
Polly?
Yeah, so I would say that for a sponsor, that you have to be really intentional about finding people in the organization that may not have the opportunity to get to the next level. Look for women, look for minorities. Everyone needs a sponsor, but they're less likely to be sponsored than potentially men. And find ways to expose them to P&L responsibilities, mission critical opportunities, things, a turnaround situation in an organization. This is going to be the way that they're noticed and that they're elevated in the organization, and that others will begin to notice them.
Yeah. Just to add to what Polly has said, many of you within your organizations hopefully have D&I strategies and plans to increase representation. So be intentional with that plan. Look at your representation numbers, but then have a process where you are sponsoring those individuals that have been selected, because it is very unnerving if you move someone into a leadership position just to meet that representation number and they're not prepared. And then you get into that situation where people are saying, well, see, I told you they wouldn't work out. This whole D&I stuff is not working. And so you don't want that to be the case. You want to be very intentional. Yes, we want our representation to increase, but we need a plan to make sure that those people that are moving into those roles are going to be successful. And how are you going to help them be successful and have the confidence to do that work? You need to sponsor them. You need to pour into them your knowledge and transition it on so that they are confident and they have the knowledge and experience to be successful at the next level.
Very good. So I want to thank my panelists. We're running out of time, but I do want to open it up to any questions that the audience might have.
Are there any companies out there that are good models right now that are doing AI well for others to follow and to get started?
I'm going to turn that one over to Gail. She's the specialist here on D&I.
I'll tell you, I have learned so much from Gail about D&I.
There are quite a few. MasterCard, Discover, right off the top of my head, in working, knowing their diversity officers in both of those respective organizations and their models that they're utilizing. It is not just a great PR, but they really do have a definitive plan and a strategy to move the needle with representation, and then the process to ensure that those individuals are going to be successful thereafter. They have very robust inclusion groups, affinity groups that support that model as well as in their hiring and recruiting practices along to support that. So it's a very well-rounded diversity strategy, but those are two right off the top.
That was a great question.
Yeah, it was.
Thank you.
Well, again, we're running out of time, so I do want to thank my panelists. I also want to invite each and one of you to check out WNET. We have a booth in the next room. We are 5,000 strong, as you heard, and it's a good combination of senior leadership as well as juniors. There are senior sponsors there within our organization. We have over 100 companies represented within our organization. We also are going to be back in Atlanta for our Leadership Summit, September 27th through the 28th at the Omni Atlanta Hotel at CNN Center. So right now we're at about 95% full as of yesterday. So if you're interested in attending, please do. And for those of you that are not identified as female, we still have advocates, male advocates. That's right. So please join and support. We need more sponsors. And I don't mean dollars. Dollars are always great, but back to the topic, we need male advocates as well. And so please join us and continue to support women like ourselves in our journey. So again, thank you this morning for your attention. This has been phenomenal. Congratulations to MPC on a great event. Have a great day.
Thank you.